Crash landing. The vast emptiness of space shimmered with countless stars, a deceptively peaceful backdrop to Princess Zora's desperate flight. Alarms blared throughout her small craft as she pushed it well beyond safe operating limits. Behind her, the massive warships of General Vex's rebel fleet gave chase, energy weapons lashing out and barely missing her ship's hull. Zora gritted her teeth, her four arms working in perfect synchronization across the flight controls. As the last surviving member of the Centaurian royal family, she carried the hopes of her entire civilization. The data crystal hanging from her neck contained the access codes to awaken the ancient defense grid, the only thing that could stop Vex's coup and save her people from tyranny. If only she could reach it in time. A violent impact rocked her ship, sending sparks cascading across the cockpit. The onboard AI's calm voice belied the direness of the situation. Warning. Hull breach detected. Life support failing. Recommend immediate landing on nearest habitable world. Zora's heart raced as she scanned the nearby star systems. There, a small blue-green planet orbiting an unremarkable yellow star. It wasn't much, but it was her only hope. Computer, initiate emergency landing sequence, she ordered, bracing herself as the ship plummeted into the planet's atmosphere. The vessel glowed red-hot from atmospheric entry, pieces of the hull tearing away as Zora fought to maintain control. Trees rushed up to meet her as the craft plunged into a dense forest, carving a destructive path before coming to a violent stop. Silence fell, broken only by the hiss of cooling metal and the distant calls of startled wildlife. Inside the wreckage, Zora lay unconscious, her violet skin marred by cuts and bruises. The ship's emergency beacon flickered weakly, its signal barely penetrating the thick canopy above. Miles away, in a small clearing, a scruffy mutt raised his head, ears twitching. The dog, a mixed breed with intelligent eyes and a shaggy coat, had been abandoned in these woods months ago. He'd learned to survive on his own, but a part of him still longed for companionship. Something in the air felt different. A faint scent unlike anything he'd encountered before tickled his sensitive nose. Curiosity overrode caution, and the dog set off into the forest, following the strange smell. As dawn broke, casting dappled sunlight through the leaves, the dog approached the crash site. Smoke still rose from the twisted metal of Zora's ship, and debris was scattered across the forest floor. The dog sniffed cautiously, circling the wreckage until he found an opening. Inside, he discovered Zora's unconscious form. The dog whined softly, nudging her hand with his wet nose. When she didn't respond, he curled up beside her, offering warmth and protection as he had once done for his human family. Hours passed. The forest slowly came alive with the sounds of birds and small animals, seemingly undisturbed by the alien object in their midst. Inside the ship, Zora stirred, consciousness returning in a haze of pain and confusion. She blinked, trying to focus on her surroundings. The first thing she saw was a pair of warm brown eyes staring at her with concern. Zora gasped, instinctively recoiling before realizing the creature beside her posed no immediate threat. What are you?" she whispered, her universal translator struggling to find the right words in this world's languages. The dog tilted his head, tail wagging slightly at the sound of her voice. He let out a soft woof in response. Zora's scientific training kicked in, helping her push aside her fear and analyze the situation. The creature appeared to be some kind of native fauna, possibly domesticated given its non-aggressive behavior. Its presence was oddly comforting in the aftermath of her crash. Slowly, carefully, she reached out a hand. The dog sniffed it, then gave her fingers a gentle lick. A small smile crossed Zora's face, her first since fleeing her home world. "Thank you for staying with me, little one," she said softly. "I suppose we're both a bit lost, aren't we?" With the dog's help, Zora managed to extricate herself from the wreckage. Each movement sent spikes of pain through her body, but her Centaurian physiology was already working to heal the worst of her injuries. She stumbled out into the forest, leaning against a tree as she took in her new surroundings. The lush greenery was unlike anything on her arid home world. The air was thick with moisture and the sense of unfamiliar plants. Zora's scientific curiosity warred with a sense of caution. She was stranded on an alien world with unknown dangers. The dog stayed close, seeming to sense her unease. His presence was reassuring, a reminder that she wasn't entirely alone. Zora knelt down, wincing at the movement, and gently stroked the dog's fur. "I don't suppose you know where I might find help?" she asked, not expecting an answer. To her surprise, the dog barked once and began trotting away. After a few steps, he looked back at her expectantly. Zora hesitated, glancing back at her ruined ship. There was nothing salvageable in the short term, and staying put wasn't an option. With a deep breath, she made her decision. "Very well, my furry guide. Lead on." As they made their way through the forest, Zora's mind raced with plans and contingencies. Her top priority was to find a way to contact her loyalists without alerting her enemies to her location. But first, she needed to understand this world and its inhabitants. The dog led her to a small stream, and Zora realized how parched she was. She cupped her hands, drinking the cool water gratefully. As she did so, she caught sight of her reflection and gasped. Her usually sleek silver hair was matted with dirt and blood. The regal attire she'd worn during her escape was torn and burned. "I'm a far cry from a princess now," she murmured. The dog nudged her hand, as if offering comfort. Zora managed a small smile. "You're right. Titles mean little here. We focus on survival first." As the day wore on, Zora and her canine companion traversed the forest. The dog seemed to have a destination in mind, though Zora couldn't fathom what it might be. Her body ached, and the alien environment taxed her senses, but she pressed on. Periodically, they would stop to rest. During these breaks, Zora attempted to use her limited equipment to scan for signs of civilization. The results were inconclusive. There were faint energy signatures that might indicate technology, but nothing definitive. As evening approached, bringing with it a chorus of unfamiliar animal sounds, Zora's concern grew. She needed shelter for the night, and her knowledge of Earth's potential predators was non-existent. The dog, however, seemed unconcerned. Just as Zora was about to suggest they find a defensible position for the night, the trees thinned, revealing a startling sight. A small wooden structure stood in a clearing, clearly artificial but long abandoned. "Is this what you were leading me to?" Zora asked the dog, who wagged his tail in response. Cautiously, they approached the building. It appeared to be some kind of recreational shelter, with a collapsed roof and the remnants of a fire pit nearby. While primitive, it offered more protection than the open forest. Zora set about making the shelter as secure as possible, using broken branches to cover the windows and gathering dry leaves for bedding. The dog watched her work, occasionally bringing her sticks in an attempt to help. As night fell, Zora huddled in the shelter with her canine protector. She stroked his fur absently, finding comfort in his steady presence. "I don't even know what to call you," she mused. After a moment's thought, she smiled. "How about Max? It seems fitting for a guide among the stars." The newly named Max wagged his tail, seeming to approve. Zora's mind turned to the challenges ahead. She was stranded on a pre-interstellar world, hunted by her own people, with only a local animal as an ally. And yet, a spark of hope remained. If this world's inhabitants were advanced enough to build shelters like this, perhaps they were closer to the stars than she initially thought. As she drifted into an uneasy sleep, Zora made a silent vow. She would find a way to contact her allies, to save her people from the tyranny that had overthrown her family. And somehow, she would find a way to protect this beautiful, primitive world from the conflict that pursued her across the stars. Max shifted closer, his warm body a reassuring presence in the alien night. Together, the unlikely pair, an exiled alien princess and a stray Earth dog, faced an uncertain future on a world that held both danger and hope. The adventure was only beginning. First contact. The first rays of dawn filtered through the dilapidated shelter, rousing Zara from her fitful sleep. For a moment, disorientation gripped her, the unfamiliar scents and sounds of Earth's forest a stark reminder of her predicament. A warm weight against her side drew her attention, and she looked down to see Max, still curled up beside her. "At least one of us slept well," Zara murmured, a hint of fondness in her voice. She gently stroked Max's fur, marveling at how quickly she'd come to rely on his presence. As if sensing her gaze, Max's eyes fluttered open. He stretched, tail wagging, as he greeted the new day with enviable enthusiasm. Zara couldn't help but smile, despite the gravity of her situation. "Come on, boy," she said, rising stiffly. "We've got a lot of ground to cover." Their first priority was finding food and water. Zara's scientific training had included xenobiology, but theory and practice were vastly different. She eyed the various plants around them warily, unsure which might be safe for consumption. Max, however, seemed to have no such reservations. He trotted confidently through the underbrush, occasionally stopping to sniff at something interesting. Zara followed, her curiosity piqued. "You seem to know your way around," she observed. "I don't suppose you could show me what's safe to eat." To her surprise, Max barked once and moved purposefully towards a nearby bush. He gently took a berry in his mouth, then dropped it at Zara's feet, looking up at her expectantly. Zara hesitated, then picked up the berry. She ran it through her portable scanner, relieved to find it contained no toxins her Centaurian physiology couldn't handle. "Well done, Max," she praised, popping the berry into her mouth. The burst of sweetness was a welcome relief after hours without food. Over the next few hours, Max led Zara to various edible plants and fruits. She marveled at his intuition, wondering if all Earth dogs possessed such knowledge, or if Max was exceptional. Either way, she was grateful for his guidance. As midday approached, the heat began to take its toll. Zara's homeworld was significantly cooler, and she found herself struggling with Earth's humidity. Max seemed to sense her discomfort, leading her to a small, clear stream. Zara knelt by the water, splashing her face and drinking deeply. She caught sight of her reflection and barely recognized herself. Her once regal appearance was now disheveled, her silver hair tangled with leaves and dirt. But there was a new strength in her eyes, a determination born of survival. "Look at us, Max," she said, glancing at the dog as he lapped at the stream beside her. "A princess and a stray, trying to make sense of this world together." Max looked up at her, water dripping from his muzzle, and gave a soft woof as if in agreement. As they rested by the stream, Zara's thoughts turned to her next moves. She needed to find a way to contact her allies without alerting her enemies, but more pressingly, she needed to understand this world and its inhabitants. "What do you think, Max?" she mused aloud. "Should we try to find the beings who built that shelter, or should we focus on repairing my ship's communication systems?" Max tilted his head, clearly not understanding but attentive nonetheless. Zara smiled, reaching out to scratch behind his ears. "You're right, one step at a time. First, we need to secure our survival. Then we can worry about interstellar politics." Their respite was interrupted by a distant rumble. Zara tensed, unfamiliar with Earth's weather patterns. "Is that normal?" she asked Max, who had also perked up at the sound. The dog's sudden unease answered her question. Dark clouds were gathering overhead, and the forest had grown eerily quiet. Max whined softly, nudging Zara's hand. "We need to find shelter," Zara realized. "Lead the way, boy." They set off at a brisk pace, Max guiding them through the increasingly dense foliage. The wind picked up, whipping through the trees and sending leaves swirling around them. Zara's hearts raced, her alien physiology ill-equipped for Earth's sudden meteorological shifts. Just as the first heavy raindrops began to fall, Max barked excitedly. Ahead, barely visible through the gloom, was the mouth of a small cave. They ducked inside just as the sky opened up, unleashing a torrent of rain. "Good boy, Max," Zara praised, catching her breath. "You're quite the survivor, aren't you?" As they settled into the cave, watching the storm rage outside, Zara found herself reflecting on the strange turns her life had taken. A week ago, she had been a princess, surrounded by the advanced technology of her people. Now she was huddled in a cave on an alien world, relying on a native animal for survival. And yet, there was something oddly freeing about it all. Here, stripped of her titles and responsibilities, she was just Zara, a being trying to survive, no different from Max or the creatures of this forest. As the day wore on and the storm showed no signs of abating, Zara began to explore their temporary shelter. The cave was deeper than she'd initially thought, extending back into darkness. Curiosity piqued, she activated the light on her portable scanner. "Stay close, Max," she murmured as they ventured deeper. The beam of light revealed crude markings on the cave walls, primitive art depicting stick figures and animals. Zara's excitement grew. This was evidence of Earth's indigenous intelligent life. "Look at this, Max," she said, running her hand over the ancient paintings. "Your people, humans, I assume, left their mark here long ago." Fascinating. As she studied the images, Zara's scientific mind went into overdrive. The art suggested a species capable of abstract thought, of recording their experiences for future generations. It was a far cry from the advanced civilization she'd need to contact her allies, but it was a start. Their exploration was cut short by a hair-raising howl from outside the cave. Max's hackles raised, a low growl rumbling in his chest. Zara froze, her alien ears straining to identify the source of the sound. "What is it, boy?" she whispered, one hand resting reassuringly on Max's back. The howl came again, closer this time. Through the curtain of rain, Zara caught a glimpse of movement, sleek, predatory forms prowling at the edge of the forest. "Wolves," she breathed, recognizing the animals from her studies of Earth's fauna. Not exactly the locals I was hoping to meet. Max positioned himself between Zara and the cave entrance, his protective instincts in full force. Zara felt a surge of affection for her loyal companion, even as fear threatened to overwhelm her. "It's okay," she soothed as much for herself as for Max. "We're safe in here. They can't reach us." As if to challenge her words, one of the wolves appeared at the cave mouth, its eyes gleaming in the dim light. Max's growl deepened, and Zara's hand instinctively went to the small energy weapon at her hip, a last resort she'd hoped never to use. For a tense moment, predator and prey locked eyes. Then, to Zara's amazement, the wolf turned away, retreating into the storm with its pack. "Did you see that, Max?" Zara exclaimed, her voice hushed with awe. "They respected your claim on this territory. Your species must have a complex relationship with theirs." As the adrenaline of the moment faded, exhaustion set in. Zara slumped against the cave wall, sliding down to sit on the cool stone floor. Max padded over, resting his head on her lap. "What a day," Zara murmured, absently stroking Max's fur. "You know, on my world, we have AIs and robots to help us with everything. But here, I'm learning more about survival and adaptation than I ever did in the royal palace." She looked down at Max, a smile playing on her lips. "And I've found a far better companion than any robot. Thank you, my friend." As night fell and the storm gradually subsided, Zara and Max huddled together in the cave, each drawing comfort from the other's presence. The princess from the stars and the dog from Earth, an unlikely alliance forged in the crucible of survival. Before drifting off to sleep, Zara's thoughts turned once more to her mission, to the conflict that had driven her to this wild, beautiful world. But now those concerns seemed distant, overshadowed by more immediate challenges. "Tomorrow," she whispered to Max, "we'll start looking for your people, humans. They're our best hope for getting off this planet and saving my world." She paused, then added softly, "But a part of me almost wishes we could stay here, just like this." Max's only response was a contented sigh as he snuggled closer. As Zara closed her eyes, she realized that in this dog, this loyal, brave Earth creature, she'd have found not just an ally, but a true friend. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The adventure continued, with each day bringing new discoveries, new dangers, and a deepening bond between two beings from worlds apart. Unexpected allies. The dawn chorus of Earth's birds roused Zara from her slumber, their alien melodies a stark reminder of her extraordinary circumstances. She stretched, her forearms reaching out in different directions, causing Max to stir from his position, curled against her side. "Ready for another day of adventure, my faithful companion?" Zara asked, her translator rendering her words into a series of soft whistles and clicks that seemed to intrigue Max. The dog's tail wagged in response, his enthusiasm infectious. As they emerged from the cave, Zara's breath caught in her throat. The forest, washed clean by yesterday's storm, sparkled with dew in the early morning light. It was a beauty so raw and untamed, unlike anything on her meticulously terraformed home world. "Oh, Max," she whispered, "I wish I could show this to my people. Perhaps then they'd understand why some worlds are worth protecting rather than conquering." Their peace was shattered by a distant rumble, not thunder this time, but something mechanical. Zara's heart raced as she recognized a sound. "Grav bikes," she hissed, pulling Max back into the shadows of the cave entrance. "The Vex forces must have tracked my ship's energy signature." Max growled softly, picking up on Zara's tension. She knelt beside him, running a soothing hand through his fur. "We need to move, boy, and quickly." They set off deeper into the forest, away from the approaching sounds. Zara's mind raced, trying to formulate a plan. She needed to warn this world's inhabitants of the coming danger, but how? Her universal translator could interpret their languages, but without knowing more about their culture and technology level, any attempt at communication could be disastrous. As they crested a hill, Zara froze. Below them, in a small clearing, was a group of beings she instantly recognized as humans. They wore clothing made of sturdy fabrics in earth tones and carried equipment that looked primitive to Zara's eyes, but suggested a scientific purpose. "Researchers," Zara murmured. "Studying their own world. Oh, Max, this complicates things." Before she could decide on a course of action, Max made the choice for her. With a joyful bark, he bounded down the hill towards the humans. Zara's heart leaped into her throat as she saw one of the humans raise what appeared to be a weapon. "No," she cried out, abandoning stealth and racing after Max. "He's friendly. Please don't hurt him." The humans' reactions were a mixture of shock, fear, and fascination as the four-armed, violet-skinned alien burst into their camp. The one with the weapon, which Zara now recognized as a tranquilizer gun, lowered it slowly, mouth agape. I come in peace," Zara said, the words feeling ridiculous even as she uttered them. Her translator rendered them in the human's language, eliciting gasps of surprise. "It speaks English." One of the humans, a woman with curly hair and dark skin, breathed in wonder. "Universal translator," Zara explained, tapping the device at her throat. "I am Princess Zara of the Centauri system, and I'm afraid I've brought trouble to your world." Over the next hour, as the distant sound of grav bikes grew closer, Zara explained her situation to the awestruck scientists. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the team's xenobiologist, listened with particular interest, her initial fear giving way to scientific curiosity. "So let me get this straight," said Dr. Tom Chen, the group's physicist. "You're saying that an advanced alien force is about to invade Earth, all because they're chasing you?" Zara nodded grimly. "The Vex see your world as primitive, ripe for conquest. They'll use the excuse of pursuing me to establish a beachhead here. Once that happens," she trailed off, the implications clear. "We have to warn people," explained Sarah Johnson, the team's youngest member. "Call the military, the government, someone." Dr. Rodriguez held up a hand. "And tell them what exactly?" "That aliens are invading because a purple princess before arms crash-landed in our forest? They'd think we've all gone mad." "She's right," Zara said. "Without proof, you'd be dismissed as delusional. and if word of my presence here spreads, it could cause panic. A tense silence fell over the group, broken only by Max's soft whine as he sensed the humans' distress. Then, unexpectedly, it was Jack Torres, the team's usually quiet geologist, who spoke up. What if we don't need to convince everyone, just the right people? All eyes turned to him as he continued, warming to his idea. My sister works for NASA. She's part of a team that monitors for potential extraterrestrial signals. If we could get Zora's ship's distress beacon transmitting on a frequency they're watching. Zora's eyes widened. That could work. But we'd need to return to my ship, repair the beacon, and the Vex forces are between us and it. Dr. Chen grinned, a spark of excitement in his eyes. Well then, Princess, I think it's time you saw what human ingenuity can do when we're backed into a corner. What followed was a flurry of activity as the scientists repurposed their equipment into makeshift jammers and decoys. Zara watched in amazement as they worked, their creativity and resourcefulness unlike anything she'd seen before. You do this without neural interfaces or AI assistance? She asked Dr. Rodriguez as the woman soldered together components with practiced ease. Helena laughed. Sometimes the old ways are the best, especially when you're working with limited resources in the field. Constraints breed creativity, as we like to say. As they prepared to move out, Zara found herself filled with a newfound respect for these humans. They had accepted her story, strange as it was, and thrown themselves into helping her without hesitation. Why? She asked Sarah, as the young woman packed up the last of their supplies. Why are you all willing to risk so much on my word alone? Sarah smiled, her eyes shining with a mix of excitement and determination. Are you kidding? This is the greatest discovery in human history. Proof we're not alone in the universe, and our first alien visitor needs our help. How could we possibly say no? Zara felt a lump form in her throat, touched by the human's words. On her world, such trust and openness, especially towards an outsider, would be seen as naive at best, dangerous at worst. But here, in this moment, it felt like strength. As they set off towards Zara's crashed ship, Max trotting faithfully by her side, the princess found herself filled with a new sense of hope. The road ahead was fraught with danger, but she was no longer alone. In these humans, these brilliant, brave, compassionate beings, she'd have found unexpected allies. And perhaps, Zara thought as she watched Dr. Chen excitedly explain wormhole theory to an enthralled Sarah, she had found something even more precious: friends. The distant whine of grav bikes grew louder, a reminder of the peril that lay ahead. But as Zara looked at the determined faces of her new companions, she felt ready to face whatever came next. Together, this unlikely team of humans, an alien princess, and one extraordinarily loyal dog, would fight to save not just Earth, but the very ideals of freedom and self-determination across the stars. The greatest adventure in human history was about to unfold, and Zara couldn't help but feel that she was exactly where she needed to be. Humanity's ingenuity unleashed. The forest echoed with the high-pitched whine of Vex grav bikes growing ever closer. Zara, Max, and their newfound human allies crouched behind a fallen tree, tension palpable in the air. Dr. Chen's makeshift signal jammer buzzed softly, its cobbled-together components a testament to human resourcefulness. It's not much, he whispered, but it should mask our biosignatures for a short while. Zara nodded, impressed. On my world, we need a quantum harmonizer for something like this. You've done it with spare parts and sheer will. Sarah grinned, despite the danger. That's kind of our thing, Princess. MacGyvering solutions out of duct tape and dreams. A Vex scout ship screamed overhead, its sleek design a stark contrast to the natural beauty of the forest. The group held their breath as it passed, exhaling only when the sound faded into the distance. Okay, Dr. Rodriguez said, pulling out a hastily drawn map. Zara's ship is about 2 clicks east. We need to get there, repair the distress beacon, and broadcast on the frequency Jack's sister is monitoring. all while avoiding detection by a technologically superior alien invasion force. No pressure. Jack chuckled nervously. When you put it that way, it sounds almost impossible. Zora's 4 hands clenched with determination. Nothing's impossible, not when the fate of 2 worlds hangs in the balance. They moved through the forest with painstaking care, using every trick the scientists had learned from years of fieldwork to move silently. Max proved invaluable, his keen senses alerting them to danger long before it became visible. As they neared the crash site, the devastation became apparent. Trees lay splintered and broken, and the acrid smell of burnt metal hung in the air. Zora's ship, once a marvel of Centaurian engineering, now resembled little more than a giant, crumpled soda can. "Oh no," Zora breathed, her heart sinking. "It's worse than I thought. The beacon, it might be beyond repair." Dr. Chen laid a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Hey, don't count us out yet. You'd be amazed what we can do with a little spit and baling wire." As the scientists got to work, Zora found herself in awe of their methods. They approached problems from angles she'd never considered, finding workarounds that seemed, by turns, brilliant and absurd. Zora managed to jump-start the ship's auxiliary power using a hand-crank generator and what looked suspiciously like a modified car battery. Jack and Elena were elbow-deep in the guts of the communication array, using earth metals to replace burnt-out Centaurian components. "It's not pretty," Jack admitted, holding up a tangle of wires and salvaged circuit boards, "but I think it'll work. We just need to boost the signal strength." Zora frowned. "But that would require a massive power surge." Dr. Chen interrupted, a mischievous glint in his eye. "Already on it. Zora, how's that Tesla coil coming along?" The young scientist gave a thumbs up from where she was assembling a contraption that looked equal parts science and sorcery. "Almost there. This baby should give us the juice we need, assuming it doesn't fry every piece of electronics within a mile radius." Zora blinked, stunned. "You're going to use lightning to power alien technology? That's insane," Elena offered. "Brilliant," Zora finished, shaking her head in wonder. As the humans worked, Zora kept watch with Max, marveling at how quickly she'd come to trust these strange, ingenious beings. On her world, solutions came from careful calculation and advanced AI simulations. Here on Earth, they seemed to be born from a chaotic alchemy of knowledge, desperation, and sheer audacity. A distant explosion shook the ground, followed by the unmistakable sound of Vex energy weapons. The invaders were getting closer. "We're out of time," Zora said urgently. "The Vex are engaging your military forces. Once they establish air superiority, they'll have jamming fields up that will make any transmission impossible." Dr. Chen nodded grimly. "All right, team. It's now or never." "Zora, fire up that coil. Jack, Elena, get ready to transmit. Zora, we could use an expert hand on the controls." As Sarah's Tesla coil crackled to life, filling the air with the scent of ozone, Zora took her place at the makeshift control panel. Her 4 hands danced across the interface, part familiar Centaurian tech, part human innovation. "Transmitting now," she announced, her voice tight with tension. "Let's hope your sister is listening, Jack." For a moment, nothing happened. The forest fell silent, as if holding its breath. Then suddenly, Zora's communication array lit up like a Christmas tree. "We're getting a response," she cried. "Multiple responses from all over your planet." The humans cheered, hugging each other in jubilation. Even Max joined in, barking excitedly. But their celebration was short-lived. The sound of graph bikes, much closer now, cut through their joy like a knife. "They've detected the transmission," Zora said, her face grim. "They'll be on us any second." Dr. Rodriguez squared her shoulders, a determined glint in her eye. "Then we stand and fight. We've come too far to give up now." Zora looked at the humans in amazement. Armed with nothing but makeshift weapons and unbreakable courage, they were prepared to face down an alien war machine. In that moment, she understood why her people had always feared and respected humanity in equal measure. "No," she said firmly. "You've all risked too much already. This is my fight." She reached for her energy weapon, but Max's sudden growls stopped her. The dog stood at attention, staring into the forest, but he wasn't looking towards the sound of the approaching Vex. A new noise filled the air, growing louder by the second. It was a rhythmic thudding, punctuated by a high-pitched whine that set Zara's teeth on edge. The humans, however, began to smile. "Those magnificent bastards," Dr. Chen breathed. "They actually did it." From beyond the tree line, a squadron of helicopters appeared, their rotors slicing through the air. Behind them, streaking across the sky, came fighter jets, their sonic booms shaking the forest canopy. "The cavalry's here," Zara whooped, pumping her fist in the air. As Earth's military forces engaged the Vex invaders, turning the sky into a spectacular light show of energy weapons and missile contrails, Zara felt a surge of emotion she couldn't quite name. It was part relief, part awe, and part something else. A growing affection for this scrappy, determined species that refused to go down without a fight. "Come on," Jack said, grabbing her hand. "We need to get you to a secure location. The brass is going to have a lot of questions, and I have a feeling you're the only one who can answer them." As they made their way towards the approaching human forces, Zara looked back at the wreckage of her ship, now serving as an impromptu command center in humanity's first interstellar war. She thought of the Centaurian throne, of the destiny she'd been bred for, and realized with a start that none of it mattered as much as what was happening here and now. With Max trotting faithfully by her side and her human friends flanking her, Princess Zara of the Centauri system strode forward to meet Earth's leaders. The fate of two worlds now hung in the balance, and she was exactly where she needed to be. The battle for Earth had begun, but with humanity's boundless ingenuity and indomitable spirit as allies, Zara felt a spark of hope ignite in her hearts. Together, they just might change the course of galactic history. Galactic dawn. The Situation Room buzzed with tense energy as world leaders, military commanders, and scientific advisors crowded around holographic displays showing the ongoing battle. Zara stood at the center, her violet skin and 4 arms drawing curious glances, but her presence now accepted as Earth faced its greatest crisis. "The Vex fleet has established a blockade in high orbit," General Xiang reported, her voice tight. "Our space-based assets are dark. We're fighting a war while blind." Zara nodded grimly. Standard Vex tactics. They'll be preparing for a full-scale invasion. "With all due respect, Your Highness," interrupted a gruff American admiral, "how do we know we can trust you?" "For all we know, this could be an elaborate ruse." Before Zara could respond, Dr. Elena Rodriguez stepped forward, "Because she risked her life to warn us. Because she worked alongside us to jerry-rig a distress beacon out of spare parts and wild hope. And because right now, she's our best shot at survival." A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. Zara felt a surge of gratitude towards her human friends. "The doctor is right," declared Secretary General Okafor of the United Nations. "Princess Zara, you have Earth's trust. What do you suggest?" Zara took a deep breath, her 4 hands moving in complex patterns as she organized her thoughts. "The Vex think you're primitives, barely out of the Stone Age. That's their weakness. They're not prepared for the full extent of human ingenuity." She turned to Dr. Tom Chen. "Tom, you were working on quantum entanglement communication, weren't you?" The physicist's eyes widened. "Yes, but it's purely theoretical. We're years away from a working prototype." Zara smiled. "Not anymore. With Centaurian tech and your brilliant minds, we can have a quantum comm array up in hours. It'll cut right through the Vex jamming." As scientists and engineers scrambled to merge human and alien technology, Zara outlined her audacious plan. Earth's militaries would launch a coordinated strike, not to win, but to distract. Meanwhile, A small team would infiltrate the Vex command ship using a captured scout vessel. Once aboard, Zora explained, we can upload a virus to their network. Not just any virus, one infused with the most powerful weapon in the galaxy. And what's that? Asked a skeptical general. Zora's eyes twinkled. Humanity's memes. The room erupted in confused chatter, but Dr. Sarah Johnson let out a whoop of laughter. Oh my God, that's brilliant. Information warfare on a galactic scale. As the plan took shape, Zora marveled at how quickly humans adapted to the impossible. Scientists worked alongside soldiers, politicians set aside old grudges, and a global effort unlike anything in Earth's history took form. Hours later, as the strike team prepared to board the captured Vex scout ship, Zora found herself facing an unexpected dilemma. Max, her loyal canine companion, refused to leave her side. I'm sorry, boy, she said softly, kneeling to scratch behind his ears. Where I'm going, you can't follow. Max whined, pressing his head against her hand. Dr. Rodriguez, geared up for the mission, smiled at the pair. You know, there's an old Earth saying, who let the dogs out? Maybe it's time we did just that. Zora blinked in confusion, but before she could ask for clarification, alarms blared. The Vex ground assault had begun. It's now or never, Jack Torres shouted over the din. We have to launch. As they boarded the scout ship, Zora was startled to see Max bound up the ramp behind them. Wait, we can't. Too late. Sarah called from the pilot's seat. Hang on to your butts, people. This is gonna be one wild ride. The scout ship screamed into the sky, weaving through aerial dogfights between human jets and Vex fighters. Sarah's piloting was erratic but effective, using maneuvers no Vex eye could predict. How did you learn to fly like this? Zora asked, clinging to her seat with all four arms. Sarah grinned. Thousands of hours in flight simulators. Turns out, gaining skills have real-world applications. As they approached the Vex command ship, tension mounted. Their stolen access codes worked, allowing them to dock undetected, but the real challenge lay ahead. Remember, Zora whispered as they prepared to disembark, we need to reach the central computer core. Once there, we can upload the virus and... She was cut off by the hiss of the airlock opening, revealing a squad of Vex soldiers, weapons raised. Intruders. The lead Vex snarled, surrender or be vaporized. Time seemed to slow. Zora's hand inched towards her weapon, knowing they were outgunned and outmatched. But before anyone could act, a blur of fur and fury burst past them. Max, hackles raised and teeth bared, launched himself at the startled Vex soldiers. In the confusion that followed, the Earth team sprang into action. Dr. Chen's makeshift EMP device shorted out Vex weapons, while Jack and Elena engaged in hand-to-hand combat using moves that looked suspiciously like pro wrestling techniques. Did you just suplex an alien? Sarah asked incredulously as Jack body-slammed a Vex trooper. Thursday night smackdown, baby, Jack whooped. Zora shook her head in amazement. These humans never ceased to surprise her. They fought their way to the computer core, Max proving to be an unexpected but invaluable ally. His Earthborn unpredictability confounded Vex tactical algorithms at every turn. Finally, they reached their goal. As Zora interfaced with the Vex systems, uploading the virus, she turned to her human friends. I can't thank you enough. All of you. You've risked everything for a stranger from the stars. Dr. Rodriguez smiled, clasping Zora's shoulder. Not a stranger, a friend. Now let's finish this and save both our worlds. With a final keystroke, Zora activated the virus. Throughout the Vex fleet, screens flickered and systems went haywire. But instead of shutting down, they began broadcasting a cacophony of Earth's digital culture. Vex soldiers found themselves paralyzed, trying to comprehend the concept of Rick-rolling. Tactical AAs crashed attempting to decipher the strategic significance of Doge and Grumpy Cat. The ship's translator matrix had a meltdown when confronted with the linguistic complexities of Yeet and On Fleek. As chaos engulfed the Vex fleet, Earth's united forces pressed their advantage. The invaders, their technological superiority neutralized by an onslaught of human creativity and absurdity, had no choice but to retreat. In the aftermath of victory, as humans celebrated worldwide and interstellar diplomacy took its first tentative steps, Zara found herself on a hilltop overlooking a jubilant city. Max sat beside her, tail wagging contentedly. "You know, boy," she said softly, "I came here as a refugee, thinking I had lost everything. Instead, I found a new home, new friends, and a species whose potential is truly boundless." Dr. Rodriguez joined them, handing Zara a steaming mug. "Hot chocolate," she explained, "Earth's second-best invention after dogs." As they watched the sun set on a world forever changed, Zara realized that her journey had only just begun. There were bridges to be built between worlds, cultures to be shared, and a galaxy of possibilities to explore. With her loyal canine companion by her side and her human friends beside her, Princess Zara of the Centauri system raised her mug in a toast. "To Earth," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "May your spirit of innovation, your capacity for love, and your boundless creativity light the way to a brighter galactic future." The adventure that had begun with a crash landing in a forest had blossomed into something greater than Zara could have ever imagined. As stars began to twinkle in the darkening sky, she knew that humanity's journey to the cosmos was just beginning. And she, along with Max and her human family, would be there every step of the way.